but what's also creeping in now is that anxiety. The reason for that is because these polls are not really moving. Despite multiple battleground blitzes, despite the opportunities she has had across media outlets, there is still not a lot of movement from voters who are moving more towards her versus former President Donald Trump. In fact, I had one source describe it to me this way, quote, "People are nervous. They know the polls are tight. And a lot of us are having these flashbacks to 2016, too. We know when it can go the wrong way, and it can still feel fresh."
Boy. How I told you guys that we're currently witnessing the greatest political comeback in American history, while at the same time witnessing the greatest political collapse in American history. That is how honest historians should describe what is currently happening going into the 2024 election between former President Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And in this video, we're going to focus mainly on Kamala Harris's collapse, because her collapse should be studied, right? It should be studied in political science for the rest of history if she loses this election, because she's on a one-way trip to a landslide defeat against President Trump if things continue to go the way they are going. Okay, we have some bombshell, devastating polls that have come out showing that Kamala Harris is losing momentum fast. Okay, and Democrats are panicking, as I've been telling you guys over the last few days. They're panicking behind closed doors, but now they're coming out and panicking in the mainstream media saying, yeah, things are not looking good for Kamala Harris. This is what they're currently saying on the liberal media outlets, including MSNBC, that has basically turned itself into a Kamala Harris Democrat Party propaganda network. But she's doing so bad that they can't even hide the collapse on that network. Take a look.
Only thing I feel is the election's coming November 5th. And I'm scared to death, and I'll get a time to, obviously.
You're not in a reflective mood.
Not in a particular reflective mood right now. I'm very, very concerned and very
What does
scared.
Harris need to do with the month left?
All right, the 7 month left. Let's start. We got 26 days.
Yep.
Today is gone. You're going to lose 4th of the hurricane. Just subtract that. We're going to get blank. You're not going to be able to get much out for the next 4 days. So, and everything kind of shuts down to Saturday before the election. So you're really probably under 20 days that you have to really get a message out. They need to be sharp. They need to be aggressive. They need to stop answering questions and start asking questions. They're doing all this and sitting down with 60 Minutes and sitting down with Colbert and sitting down with... No matter what, if I come on your show, you're going to ask me the questions.
That's true.
If I have a press conference, I get to ask the questions.
You'd like to see her do more press conferences?
I'd like for her to put more things in play. Like
where she's out driving it.
Out saying, what is J.D. Vance talking about that Trump saved Obamacare, tried to just destroy it at every point? I would put President Obama out to make that. He's only got a 92% approval with Democrats. He only is the author, the father of 23 million people having insurance. I would have President Clinton talking, going on these local TV stations talking about how tariffs are going to destroy the economy of Wisconsin or Michigan or anywhere else, because they have never worked.
We have some new CNN reporting today about what is going on behind the scenes inside the Harris campaign and more broadly among Democrats who are growing more and more anxious about a 2016 redux. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez joins me now. Priscilla, we were just joking here at the table that anxious Democrats happen on a day that ends in Y. But this is something that perhaps is warranted given the data that they're seeing. Explain your great reporting.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right, Dana. And this has been a campaign that was described by multiple Democrats, allies, aides, to the vice president as a good vibes campaign. But what's also creeping in now is that anxiety. The reason for that is because these polls are not really moving. Despite multiple battleground blitzes, despite the opportunities she has had across media outlets, there is still not a lot of movement from voters who are moving more towards her versus former President Donald Trump. In fact, I had one source describe it to me this way, quote, "People are nervous. They know the polls are tight. And a lot of us are having these flashbacks to 2016, too. We know when it can go the wrong way, and it can still feel fresh."
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, right? According to the propagandists on CNN, apparently the Democrats behind closed doors, they're having flashbacks to 2016, okay? According to James Carville, they need to roll out Obama. They need to roll out Bill Clinton. They need to roll out some of the strong men in the Democrat Party to appeal to the men that are abandoning Kamala Harris, right? Because that's what's happening, okay? Kamala Harris is struggling in the so-called Rust Belt with white rural men, right? That's what's happening, okay? That's the honest to God truth, okay? They are saying, nah. We can't sign up for Kamala Harris. We're just not going to do it, okay? And I think one of the reasons why is because Kamala Harris can't even articulate the difference between her and Joe Biden in interviews, right? She's saying, well, I wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden. In fact, I was a part of a lot of the disasters of the Biden administration. Now, everybody knows that this is a very stupid answer to give for multiple reasons because she's running as the so-called change candidate, but she can't articulate exactly what she would change if elected and what she would have changed if she was the president, right? So if she can't articulate these things, then why in the hell should anybody vote for her? Voting for her is just like voting for Joe Biden. And we know why Joe Biden's not in the race anymore, because Joe Biden has been so disastrous that it became very clear that he couldn't beat Trump, right? That's why he dropped out. That's why Democrats forced him to drop out. So when you replace Joe Biden with Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris is saying that, well, I'm the same as Joe Biden, what reason do people have to vote for Kamala Harris? Again, she's too stupid to realize that that answer is probably one of the worst answers that you could give. And yesterday I said in response to Kamala Harris, once again, not being able to articulate the difference between her and Joe Biden on Stephen Colbert, just like she couldn't do on The View, I said, well, I wouldn't be surprised if she starts to come out and say, well, the difference between me and Joe Biden is that, well, I'm a black woman, right? And lo and behold, one of the Kamala Harris propagandists went on CNN and said exactly what I said that Kamala Harris probably would start saying because she really doesn't know how to answer that question. Take a look.
Flashback.
I'm actually surprised she has not come out and said that, well, I have a vagina and I'm allegedly black, right? I'm surprised she hasn't pulled a race in the gender card yet. Who knows? Maybe that's coming if they get desperate enough.
Vice President Harris has been asked repeatedly how she's different than President Biden, and some people think she's been tripped up by answering that. How do you think she is different than President Biden?
Well, first of all, whatever the differences is between them, it's not nearly as vast as the difference between her and Donald Trump. She's obviously a woman. She is a woman of color, and she is of a new generation. So she is not Joe Biden, as much as they want to try to make her Joe Biden. But she was and is part of the Biden administration.
Yeah, so apparently that's the only difference between her and Joe Biden. Joe Biden, the most unpopular president in recent American history. The only difference between her and Joe Biden is that she is allegedly a black woman, right? So you might not like the policies of the Biden administration, but hey, that doesn't matter. I'm allegedly a black woman, right? That is Kamala's whole appeal, okay? And that's what her campaign, her surrogates, her propagandists are saying out loud, which again is what I said yesterday. I said, well, I wouldn't be surprised if they started pulling that card because that's all they got at this point, right? That's all they have, that plus abortion, right? Which apparently is the only thing keeping Kamala Harris alive right now in this race, because we have a slate of bombshell polls that have come out, including from liberal pollsters, like, for example, Emerson College, showing Trump absolutely dominating Kamala Harris, right, in the swing states. Like, for example, this poll right here showed Trump up by 3 in Arizona, even in Georgia, even in Michigan. Harris up 1 in Nevada, Trump up 1 in North Carolina, up 1 in Pennsylvania, up 1 in Wisconsin. Okay, this would result in Trump winning the race. And again, this is a bad sign because we all know, historically speaking, Trump tends to overperform when it comes time to vote. Okay, and this is not the only poll that has just come out showing that Kamala Harris is losing, but you also have other swing state polls that have come out from liberal pollsters like Quinnipiac that are showing Kamala Harris losing ground in the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin and Michigan, which again is a big problem for Kamala Harris. Take a look.
Your voice, your vote. There is now less than a month until Election Day, and the latest polling in our state shows signs of trouble for the Democrats. 13 on Your Side political reporter Josh Albertus shows us these latest numbers.
Things seem to be shifting here in the Rust Belt, where Vice President Kamala Harris had held slim leads in a lot of those polls following her entrance into the race at the top of the ticket. Now let's take a look at what this latest polling from Quinnipiac has to say. Here in Michigan, just last month, Quinnipiac had Harris up by 5 in Michigan. Now, less than a month later, this same pollster saying it's almost flipped. This time, Trump up by 3. Trump besting Harris when it comes to whom respondents felt would be best on issues like the economy, immigration, the conflict in the Middle East, and preserving U.S. democracy. Harris leading on abortion access.
What I'm talking about now is the state of the race. Quinnipiac out with 3 new battleground state polls, public polls. Some people are not fans of Quinnipiac. Let's show that, please. That's number 5. Okay, this is not exactly what I believe the private polling shows, but Pennsylvania, Harris up 3, Michigan, Trump up 3, Wisconsin, Trump up 2. Now, I can tell you without fear of contradiction that there's not a Democratic pollster, including people working for the Harris campaign, who would say that Pennsylvania is Harris up 3. And what they would all say is it's her worst of the blue wall states, okay? So here's some public polling. You're welcome to read all the public polls you want. I tend to not credit the public polling that much because it's often not correct, because the public polls done by media organizations and by academic groups, they're not as robust, okay? So I want to show you something that suggests that I'm not the only reporter who's hearing from Democrats who are worried. Are they worried because they're conditioned to be worried because of 16? Yeah, that's some of it. And they're outspending Trump. She's campaigning. And they're outspending Trump. She's campaigning. She's doing this social media, new media stuff. She did her 60 Minutes interview. They want to be ahead now. And they know what their polls say. And their polls are not as good as the public polls for her. They haven't given up. I'm not writing them off by any means. Again, abortion, turnout, Trump ceiling, all could produce a Harris victory, and maybe a comfortable Harris victory. But there's concern because they see things getting in a direction. Where is it moving directionally? They don't like the direction it's moving in. That's all I'm reporting. I'm not reporting the race is over. Some people are mischaracterizing what I'm reporting. It's true again today. And what's happening is I'm hearing from Democrats who know her well, elected officials, donors, California strategists, who are saying she needs to be a warrior in these last few months. She needs to up her game. She needs to feel it. She needs to close strong. And they look at her performance on television yesterday, where it appears, as always, she's trying to not make mistakes, get through the interview without making mistakes, rather than really transforming the race and demonstrating to the undecided voters who we talked to on this program, she'll be a good steward of a good economy, fierce commander-in-chief, ready for the job. That's what they're worried about. They're worried that they're not in a good place to win 270 electoral votes, and they're worried that what she's doing at a performance level is not good enough to win, perhaps. That's what I'm reporting.
Yeah, so although I have a very positive attitude right now, what is very depressing to me is that you can see one presidential candidate lead on literally all of the major issues except one issue, abortion, right? Except abortion. And the polls can still be close, right? I mean, that to me is one of the most depressing things that I've ever seen, because it really shows you just how delusional and emotional some people are when it comes to the issue of abortion, mainly women, right? Let's keep it all the way 100. You have a large group of people in this country, maybe even half the country, that are voting based off one issue, and that is abortion. An issue that, in my opinion, doesn't have anything to do with crime, doesn't have anything to do with immigration, doesn't have anything to do with the economy, right? That's not a real core issue, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. It's a moral issue, right? It is an issue that I'm not saying is not important at all, but in this election, I don't understand how the hell you go to the voting booth and say, well, I don't care about the positions of any of the candidates. All I care about is how they feel about abortion, right? That to me is crazy, okay? It is absolutely insane, right? But here we are, right? Unfortunately, this is how our modern day politics works, and you have an election basically being decided about one issue, so it seems, and we just have to hope and pray that there's enough people that are sane, that are saying, hey, maybe in this election, the economy, immigration, other things, World War III, those things are much more important than abortion, right? I'm hoping that most people, are reasonable and understand what's at stake here. But what you're saying is that Trump is now starting to extend his lead in the battleground states, in the averages, because Kamala Harris had briefly overtaken him in the averages. And now you're seeing Trump not only surpass Kamala Harris, but he's starting to kind of break away from Kamala Harris just a little bit, just a tiny bit. Okay, and this is a terrible position for Kamala to be in going into the election, because Trump typically overperforms. Now, I know I say this a lot, okay, but that's just how history has worked out. Now, you have 2022, where you had the 304s come out and vote in droves for Democrats due to the issue of abortion, unfortunately. And that is what stopped the red wave. But people got to understand that although a red wave was predicted, Republicans still won, right? So again, people can say, oh, well, the polls were wrong in 2022. Kinda, right? They were wrong in the sense that they over-predicted how well Republicans would do, but they correctly predicted that Republicans would win. Republicans still won. They just didn't win overwhelmingly, right? Polls also in 2020, they predicted that Democrats would have a blue wave, except it was a blue trickle, right? So they were wrong about how Democrats would win, the margin at which they would win, but they were right in regards to Democrats winning. Now, in 2016, they were just completely wrong, right? So I'm just saying, okay, what we have here, okay, are polls that are in Trump's favor when you look at history, okay? When Trump is on the ballot, which he wasn't in 2022, but when Trump is on the ballot, he tends to overperform. You tend to have Trump supporters who are hard to poll, right? So his support is underestimated. However, Kamala's support could be underestimated as well too, because of the young thoughts of America coming out and voting for her simply because of one issue. I'm hoping that the polls have not accounted for the Trump supporters that are, again, low-key Trump supporters that don't participate in these polls, right? And some of the new voters that Trump has gotten, okay, due to the fact that the Biden administration has been so bad that he's motivated new people to support him. And I'm hoping that they have thoroughly accounted for the 304 vote, right? If the 304 vote is baked into these polls and the secret Trump support is not, which again, we know historically speaking, these polls have done a terrible job at accounting for the secret Trump support. If that is the case, then again, Trump is headed for a landslide victory, okay? That's where we're currently at. So Democrats, they're panicking because they're seeing the writing on the wall. Kamala's not performing nearly as well as she should be performing going into this election, and it's looking bad, right? It's looking like Kamala Harris can't do anything to turn it around, because although she's doing more interviews, she's not good at interviews. She's saying things that are tanking her campaign. Like, for example, again, she's the same as Joe Biden. She wouldn't do anything differently than Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is the most unpopular president that we've had in a long time. So anybody out here deciding to vote for Kamala Harris, if they want somebody different than Joe Biden, if they want change, they're literally voting against what they want, right? They're voting against their best interest, okay? And Kamala Harris has already said so herself. That's not something that she can take back. In fact, what she's saying is already being used in ads by the Trump campaign, right? They've already taken what she said and they're using it against her. And at this point, the more interviews that she continues to do, the worse it's going to get. But if she continues to avoid interviews, she's also going to lose because of that too, right? I actually think there's nothing that she can do to help herself in this situation because she doesn't have the talent. She doesn't have the ability. At some point, you got to just accept that, hey, Kamala was the wrong choice, right? When we staged this coup against Joe Biden, maybe, just maybe, we should have had an open primary, right? Maybe, just maybe, we should have had democracy, right? We should have let the voters decide, because Kamala Harris was the same person who couldn't even get a vote in the Democrat primary in 2019. So what makes you think that she was a good candidate now when she wasn't a good candidate back then? She failed back then for the same reasons that she's failing now. She's just not good. So at this point, Democrats stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's not much they can really do to turn things around. At this point, it seems as if it is basically just a matter of time before Trump just takes a commanding lead over Kamala Harris. And I'm just hoping and praying that carries through the election. All we have to do is to sprint through the finish line. We just have to finish the job. That's it. That's all we got to do at this point, because it's looking very good for Trump, not so good for Harris. And we just got to do what we have to do on election day to finish the job. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.